The world experienced a pandemic in 2020, but unlike previous pandemics, this one had far more reaching effects that were unexpected and unprecedented. It brought havoc to the economy, changed people's social patterns, and masks became both preventative appliances as well as fashion statements. Americans became aware of the virus on January 24, 2020, when it was reported in the paper that China was locking down cities in an effort to contain a deadly new virus that was sickening hundreds of people in Wuhan, China, a city of 11 million people. Less than 3 weeks after this front-page story, businesses were closing and people were losing their jobs. The economy was in a recession mode and lives were being lost. By March of 2020, the number of reported deaths worldwide from COVID-19 was at 6,500. By the end of 2020, there have been 81.5 million cases with 1.78 million deaths worldwide. The United States reported a total of 19.4 million cases with 335,000 deaths. Wisconsin had 5,000 deaths from 510,000 cases. By the end of 2020, Sauk County accounted for 5.2 thousand cases and 40 deaths. As COVID started to spread around the world, it was compared to pandemics of the past and present, beginning with the Spanish flu of 1918. This was the H1N1 virus and was blamed for 50 million deaths during the year it circled the globe. The Asian flu, the H2N2 virus, appeared in 1957 and lasted for a year, claimed a death toll of 1.1 million. From 1968 to 1970, the Hong Kong flu, the H3N3 virus, resulted in 1 million lives lost. In 1981, the HIV/AIDS virus appeared. This virus has been attributed to the death of 25 to 35 million people and is the longest running pandemic at 39 years so far and is still counting. The H1N1 virus reappeared in 2009-2010 and was better known as the swine flu. The death toll from this round of the virus was substantially lower than its 1918 reign, when fewer than 200,000 died. As COVID began to spread, Wisconsin responded to the virus by closing down businesses, churches, schools, and events. On March 18th, Evers closed all schools in the state, effective immediately. On March 24th, Evers implemented a safer at home order and urged citizens to stay at home to reduce the spread of COVID-19. On April 16th, the safer at home order was extended to be in effect until May 26th. However, on May 13th, the Wisconsin Supreme Court struck down Governor Evers' safer at home orders as unconstitutional. On July 30th, Governor Evers declared a public health emergency and issued an emergency order requiring people to wear a face mask in public indoor spaces. Many cities and counties had already implemented mask mandates before the statewide order was issued. On September 22nd, as cases in the state continued to rise, the mask mandate was extended until November 21st. Governor Evers issued another order in October 2020, limiting the number of people allowed to gather in public places. Meanwhile, back in Reedsburg, the medical community took a very serious approach to dealing with the virus. The Reedsburg Area Medical Center established strong protocols restricting access to their buildings. Anyone with an appointment was required to wear a mask while in the building. They were also screened at the door where their temperature was taken and questions about recent symptoms were asked.
Everyone's health, protection, and safety are our #1 priority. Reedsburg Area Medical Center is strong, resilient, and prepared. From our rigorous cleaning and infection control standards, hand hygiene, building and business enhancements, and our continued screening program, to our stringent use of personal protective gear for us and you, rest assured that you are in safe and exceptional care at Reedsburg Area Medical Center.
If you are in need of primary or specialty services, please give our clinics a call. If you need walk-in or emergency care, come in.
Together, we've got this. Today, tomorrow, and all the days to come.
COVID has been really affected the ambulance service just as it did with all of the hospitals. Every call we go on, we have to take special precautions, so wearing extra personal protective equipment, N95 masks, sometimes even PAPR devices, which blow fresh air, filtered air into a hood, gowns, gloves, glasses. It's really a tedious thing putting on all of that extra protective equipment, and then after the call there's extra disinfecting that needs to happen to make sure that we're properly cleaning the ambulances, the cots and everything, so that we're not transmitting COVID to a future patient. So it's been really tedious, and a lot of the calls that we go on are potential COVID cases or known COVID cases. So it's really been something that has affected all of the EMTs and paramedics that work at the ambulance. We actually have seen a lot of cases, then we find out a couple different ways. First of all, the patient might know that they're COVID positive, so they tell us, when they call 911 that they are COVID positive. The other way we find out is after we get them to the hospital and the hospital does a test, they let us know that the patient was COVID positive, just to make sure that we were wearing the proper protective equipment. Since June, we have been doing COVID testing here at the ambulance garage for anybody who wants to get tested. So there's really no criteria, and we've been testing. It started out slow. It started out in 30s, 50s, 70s, and at the height of testing, we were over or close to 400 tests in one day, but we've been averaging right around 200 tests a day that we've been doing for the general public. We collect all the specimens here and send them out for testing, and we don't get any of the results here. All those results go back to the state and Sauk County Public Health for notification of the people who were tested. It can take 3 to 5 days. The person gets an email, but if they don't have email, they're contacted by Public Health to let them know the test results.
Schools closed for most of the remaining school year. Virtual learning increased dramatically. By the start of 2021 school year, the Reedsburg district established a hybrid system where half the students were in the building on Mondays and Tuesdays, and the other half were there on Thursdays and Fridays.
Half of our students, A through L, who attend school on Mondays and Thursdays, and then M through Z, for the most part, attend on Tuesdays and Fridays. There are obviously some exceptions that we've made to that, primarily to try to help accommodate family schedules and things like that. And then very few, if any, students are coming on Wednesdays. Those are kind of on a scheduled kind of a basis for students who are working on a special project or who maybe have special needs of some sort where they need some additional one-on-one, face-to-face kind of help. But for the most part, again, it's Group A coming on Mondays, Thursdays, Group B coming on Tuesdays and Fridays. On the days when the student is not physically present in a school building, they continue to receive educational experiences by way of the internet. The teacher presents information to their class. Sometimes that's done simultaneously with the class of students who are in front of them. So in other words, if the A group is right here in front of me, I might also be working with the B group students electronically on the same things. In some cases, the virtual group, the group that is not physically present, they might receive that in a recorded kind of a message that lays the foundation for that educational experience, and it's done with more independence. On Wednesdays, everyone is in that virtual mode. Again, with very few exceptions. There might be a few kids here and there that, for one reason or another, would physically attend. But all of the students are meeting with their teacher by way of the internet. We've continued to operate our sports programs both at the middle school and high school levels with a fair amount of success. They follow some very specific, albeit somewhat rigid, set of protocols in order to keep themselves safe, keep their teammates safe, keep their fellow competitors, their opponents, if you will, safe as well. We do a number of things each day with those students, temperature checks, go through a list of, those common symptomatic sorts of things that are connected with COVID, and make sure that they're not experiencing any of those symptoms before they enter a practice or a competition. And then we follow certain protocols in terms of, the sanitation of the facility and the equipment and all of that. We have very strict protocols about who's allowed into the facility, which frankly has been very few people beyond those that are essential to carrying out the event. Just recently, today in fact, we began allowing a small number of spectators into those kinds of events. And so we'll gradually work our way into that, hoping that we have success so that we can continue to grow that as long as, folks are following those protocols. And when there is a identified infectious individual, then we do all of the necessary contact tracing sorts of things so that we put the right folks into quarantine if they need to be, and at the very least we notify those who could possibly have been in contact with that individual. Frankly, it was a little bit easier for us to justify having some spectators for fall events because the majority of those are done outside. And so we were able to allow a reasonable number of folks. Again, strict protocol about face coverings, physical distancing in the bleachers, things like that, that were adhered to help keep everyone safe. We started our winter season in a different format with no spectators, again, just primarily because of that enclosed environment and because, frankly, of where the numbers were at in terms of COVID activity in our community and in our county and throughout the state. Yeah, a number of other things that we would typically be doing have been canceled. Field trips, for example, which would be commonplace for all of our students and most of our programs, especially at the elementary level. We're not taking those field trips. There are other types of activities, not just sporting activities, but other activities that our middle and high school students would normally be involved in, and those have either been set on hold or they've been, some of them have been able to orchestrate a virtual kind of component to it to at least continue those programs. Things like concerts and dramatic programs that would take place in our auditorium and things like that, those have all been conducted in a much reduced number, and then those that have been able to be done, have been done in a very, very different way with, little or no audience. And under non-COVID environment, we have had a summer feeding program that's supported by both the federal and state government, where we provide meals to children in our community under the age of 18. And we've been able to maintain that all the way through this pandemic experience. Many of our children are not coming to school at all. Those that are choosing that virtual only option, they're still able to come to our schools on a regular, routine, scheduled basis and receive meals. Typically, we're providing them, several meals at a time, so they don't have to be coming every day. And so that, like I say, that went on even last spring when we were not in school, continued all through the summer, continued all through this school year up until now, and likely will continue for months ahead.
City Administrator Tim Becker and Mayor Dave Estes talk about the city's response to COVID.
For us as a city, COVID related, obviously there's a detrimental effect on a lot of businesses and things like that, but the overall feeling in the city was never that doom and gloom that you saw on the national news or that you saw when you went online or anything like that. And it's really, it made me proud to be from here, because Reedsburg did what Reedsburg always does, is they put their head down and they went to work, and they kind of muscled through it. It wasn't people out there feeling sorry for themselves. It was people like, I want to work, I want to do this, I want to make sure that we get through this. And it was encouraging to see that, because when I deal with other people from different communities, that's not always the case. But I take a lot of pride in being from here because of that. Just that attitude that they have, that kind of, just that bravado, that's stiff-necked. Is like, things are bad, but I'm not going to make it any worse. I'm going to get through this, and we're going to get through this together. And you saw that over and over again, and people kind of just locked arms and marched right through it. So you didn't see the ill effects in our community like you saw in other communities. So I was very proud of that. I think one of the first things that we did was we had to make sure that we kept all of our employees safe. So as you come around City Hall and see that the changes that we had to make structurally, plexiglass everywhere, PPEs everywhere, everything smells like bleach, everything smells like cleaner, and just things like that, because we wanted to keep as much normalcy as we could and meet in person as much as we could, but in a lot of those circumstances that wasn't possible. So in addition to all these other things I've mentioned, the technology that we've brought together has been just incredible as compared to past years. We've had a couple of cases where people have gotten COVID and had to be off for 14 days and that kind of stuff and quarantined, but that hasn't been a widespread epidemic here in this building. I think it was intimidating initially, and then once we realized how much technology really eased a lot of the things that we did and made it more convenient, it forced us to recognize that, and then we'll just move forward with those things. We'll always offer a virtual alternative to our meetings, our committee meetings, our council meetings, and things like that. So attendance in those meetings will be easier, and I think it's a little bit easier for the public to attend if they're able to dial in for those types of things. A lot of our presenters, for instance, our financial advisors, are based in either Madison or Milwaukee. So we would normally have to pay those guys to come up here to make a presentation. Now they can just zoom into our meetings, and our council chamber is outfitted appropriately to allow that kind of stuff to happen. So one of the things that we did almost immediately was, first we got all of our employees safe, and then we started to open up our parks as quickly as we could. They probably all opened up a month ahead of time that we normally would, because we recognize that people need things to do so they can get out of their houses, because they can't be with people. And I don't know if you drove around during the springtime and saw families out for walks and families out in our parks, in March and April, which you don't really see that very often other than organized events. So I think that was good. And that's something we'll continue to do, is to make sure that the amenities that we have in the city are open and available for people to take advantage of if they want to, if they feel safe enough to do that. We didn't want to be the ones that made the decision of closing things when there were people who were comfortable using them, even though some people weren't comfortable using them. So for instance, the city pool, we opened that and left that available for people who were comfortable enough to use that. We cleaned it and cleaned it and cleaned it, but if people weren't comfortable, they won't go. But if they were and they didn't, our pool was very popular. Matter of fact, we had people from neighboring cities that closed their pools that were coming to our pool just to have something to do. All of our construction projects were probably a little bit more than on track. The only one that's taking a little bit longer is the actual construction of our Public Works and Parks facility. And that's only because there was a supply line issue far down the line from us where we couldn't get the things that we needed to complete construction. So we're maybe a couple weeks late on that. But other than that, the decreased amount of use based on COVID allowed us to get into some areas and get our projects done a little bit quicker than we normally had to. North Dewey Road construction, that was a very large project, and that ended up only being 2 weeks late, and that was weather related. Yeah, Webb will put that splash pads, we'll start construction on that this year, and that's huge. I mean, that's a great amenity. I wish we had the money to put 5 of them around the city, because for me, it's easy. There's no employees, there's no staff. The water turns on when someone goes to use it and then turns off when they leave. So it's really, I mean, it's a low drag out. It's just a lot of money up front, you know, but once it's there, you know, and relatively very few moving parts. So the maintenance isn't terrible at all. It'll be great. I mean, it's going to be a huge draw, and that's one of my favorite things, is to see the kids out in the parks playing and stuff, and that'll just be a great thing to bring people to. So we have had some issues where, for instance, the theater on the east side, COVID had a huge effect on that project. Then there's a little delay in the supply chain, because that's, you know, the seats, the projectors, and all the things that are required for that. Those factories, they stopped working because everybody got sent home because they couldn't distance properly. They didn't have enough PPEs, so they ended up sending people home and people got laid off. So none of those things were being made. So construction got delayed almost a full year, and he anticipates breaking ground in the spring.
The first thing we did early on to help businesses, because the first thing we worried about was small businesses in town losing out because you couldn't go anywhere, everything was locked down. The $5,000 program that we did for loans for small businesses, that if we gave them $5,000 interest-free through, I think it was the end of the year. And I think we did some same thing with licensing as well. For liquor license, beverage license, we cut the price in half, I do believe, so that we could help them out wherever we could to help them save some money to put towards back in their pocket. Things have slowed down as far as the economic development in the city. Maybe not so much residential, but on the business side, but we've had a lot of prospects that are kind of on the back burner that are just waiting for the right time to pull the trigger, and we'll get back on track here pretty quick. We always do. Reedsburg does our own thing. We do it our own way, and it always works. Help each other out. We're a community that gives back and helps each other out when the time arises. And during the pandemic early on, and even now, the order out, takeout, people were sold out. You know, like all the different bars in town and all the different establishments that sold food on a Friday night, or they adapted to selling food on a Friday night. I'm thinking like the Badger Bar, for example. They started really getting a lot of business doing takeout on Friday night for fish, and Saturday nights. You have to adapt the way you can. That's Reedsburg's mentality all around. You adapt to what the conditions are and do your thing.
When this started, we basically changed overnight how we had to do our operations. Our staff, you know, is key here. We had to make sure that we're protecting our staff. They need to show up to do their job. If they're homesick with COVID, they're not able to do their job protecting and serving the community. So it's very important that we provide masks, keep our facility clean, our squads clean, keep them sanitized. So we had to make sure we're getting all the equipment, whether it be cleaning wipes, soap, disinfectants, all that stuff, masks, gloves, and obviously everyone wanted to get those materials all at once, which made it difficult to get some of those materials, but our city staff did a good job making sure that we got those materials and those resources to do that. As far as some of the procedures that changed, we did a lot of over the phone contacts with people, where typically we'd meet in person with them, just to avoid that in contact with people, to help stop the spread of COVID and to do our part as well. While cases initially went down during that time period, we were assisting the Sauk County Health Department in spreading the word and spreading knowledge and awareness of COVID, what to do to help prevent the spread of it and whatnot. So a lot of those, efforts that we, on our part, weren't really tracked in cases, but it was definitely something that we're taking part in to try to help out the community and help out the South County Health Department with that knowledge and spreading that awareness. Anyone we have, whether it's in our booking and processing area, if we have to do an interview with someone, we'd be having a mask for them as well, just to take that extra step to protect our staff and to protect those people that we had contact with as well. Most people were pretty responsive to the fact that we were trying to help them, and they understood that we were just doing our job as well. There was a lot of hostility in the public all across the country on this side or that side of wearing a mask or doing this or doing that. But for the most part, with the people we had contact with, they were pretty understanding with us and realized we're just doing our job. Typically, an officer would have to go over to Baraboo, to the courthouse, to either have a preliminary hearing or motion hearing or whatnot. A lot of that turned into Zoom meetings or video conference calls. So that was a big change and something that we still are doing to this day and may continue to do more often. From our end, that's a 30-minute drive to Baraboo there and then 30 minutes back. So the staff, that's less drive time for them, and they're still able to do what they need to do as far as getting that testifying in for the court. But there's definitely a change in that with the court proceedings. That kind of ties into trainings as well. We do a lot of trainings throughout the year with our staff to make sure that we're keeping up with the standards that are out there in law enforcement, and a lot of those trainings got canceled, so a lot of those trainings moved to either a virtual format or just like a recorded video where you watch it here. So that changed as well, and I could see that being something that lasts into the future as well. And we do have municipal court here in town as well, so we have municipal court and state court. Everything over in Baraboo would be the state court with the bigger charges, or municipal court we have the smaller charges, whether it be like a speeding ticket or whatnot, or just like a disorderly conduct that doesn't reach a level of taking someone to jail. Those proceedings we did have in person. We set up some pretty strict social distancing, sanitizing, and to take those precautions for people and for the staff as well. So those proceedings were done in person on the initial court appearances, but everything with Baraboo at the state court was pretty much moved to video. We have had a number of services that we had to alter or even suspend temporarily. Our reception lobby handles a lot of license plate and vehicle registration. And for a while we had our lobby closed down just to help prevent the spread of COVID when it was first coming out, when we're trying to learn and everything that was involved in it. We've since, again, created procedures to help that with the distancing and wiping everything down and trying to limit our hand-to-hand exchange of items as much as possible. So that has been something that has been altered, and we'd like to get back to normal as soon as possible, just because that interaction with the citizens is very important to us. Our ride-along program was suspended, again, just to keep that close contact interaction down. It's just the squads they have limited space already, so trying to pack 2 people in there, it's not good when you're trying to prevent the spread of COVID and those close contacts. So I would say overall the general public did fairly well in understanding that we were still having a job to do, and that was appreciated on our part. We got a lot of support over the last year for our efforts, having to go to work and show up every day, along with a lot of the other first responders with the EMS and fire and healthcare workers and all that. So that was much appreciated and really did help lift everyone up here to, when we're coming to work every day. So that was great to see and much appreciated.
One of the hardest hit venues was the Cal Center, and the Cal Center presents.
Starting back in the spring, we were on the verge of having our Coroller Home Show, which usually is 3 different programs on 3 different days, and that was when COVID hit, and basically no audiences were going to be allowed in this facility, and so they tried to put on a program once and live stream it, and of course, first time to try to do something like that, it was a challenge. It came off okay. I mean, the broadcast, at least the video was good. Sound was questionable, but they performed on stage with their show together, and then it was broadcast, but again, with no audience. And then from that point on, everything that was originally scheduled for the rest of the school year was canceled. Pretty much everything, including Cal Center Presents, we had to cancel all of our shows basically for the entire year. Maybe you should speak a little bit to that.
Well, for Cal Center Presents is a nonprofit group that brings a performing arts series to the Cal Center. We have between 6 and 8 shows in a year. A year ago, our last show was in February, in the middle of February, and then we had one more show in the season at the end of April. That was an Ole and Lena musical comedy. We've had to reschedule that one now 3 times. In July, we realized that we were going to have to reschedule the shows from the fall of 2020 to the spring of 2021, which is what we did. And then we realized in October that we were going to have to just reschedule the whole 2021 season to 21-22. We were able to reschedule without any penalty. It really affects all those artists too that travel from all over. We even got some modified contracts with a COVID rider on it, and if COVID's still an issue, if they come here, there are certain parameters that must be met.
But like all the dance recitals, we have 3 different dance studios that use our facility during the year. They had to cancel. We also had the American Legion. They typically bring in Molly B and Maggie May every year, and that's one of their big fundraisers every year. And obviously they had to cancel not only last spring, but typically Molly B comes in and does a Christmas program here in December and brings her whole family in, and I mean, it's huge. They have 2 or 3 shows, and they typically sell out. Places packed right up to the roof, and they weren't able to do that this year. In a facility like this, we have just under 600 seats in the facility, and to properly separate people so there's at least 6 feet of distance between people, we're probably down to about 1/6 of our total attendance area. I think maybe like 112 people. We can get into this facility safely with 6-foot distance between meals. If you count rehearsals and meetings and seminars and dance recitals and piano recitals and everything, in the last 2 years, we've averaged well over 300 scheduled events in here in a year. As far as the school district is concerned, it's not so bad. But when you get into situations like where you have like the dance studios, the way they operate, those recitals are really a big fundraiser for them. And so when you pack the place full with 600 people at $10 a ticket, that's how they kind of keep themselves going without having to charge too much for the kids to pay their tuition for their classes. So that's tough for them. The same thing with American Legion. I mean, when Molly B comes in here and she puts on 3 shows and she packs the place, 600 people, they're losing thousands of dollars every year. Or every time that those types of things are canceled. So that hurts them immensely. Cal Center Presents is a little bit different in that we've had some really great support from the community, and so we're not below sea level as far as that's concerned. We're going to be able to get through it. But I could see some situations where it can be really tough on a business that's relying on this facility to kind of get them over the top every year.
Yeah, and Cal Center Presents, that was another thing I was going to mention, is that we rely on ticket sales, of course, and area businesses that are sponsors, and individuals that are or businesses that donate. And we're so appreciative that they have and do.
But we're really looking forward to the time when we can start putting people back in here again. I mean, that's what this place was built for. And that's what we want to have happen. So we're hoping in the next 6 months or so that will take place. We had new speakers put in this summer, and it's unfortunate for people because they are unbelievable. The sound quality in here now is beyond belief. You won't believe it when you hear the first musical performance in here and hear what it's like. It goes beyond anything that you could possibly experience in an auditorium. We're that excited about what it's going to be like. So we're hoping that we can get people in here soon so that they can experience that.
The first effect on us was
that we had to, even though we were cast and in rehearsals for our spring play in the spring of 2020, which was scheduled for mid-April, and we ended up having to cancel the production. Reedsburg Area High School Drama Club is the current host organization for the junior players summer theater program, and that's a program that's open to elementary to through middle school age students as the performers, and then high schoolers are the technicians and assistants with that. And we had a production ready to go. We were going to do Addams Family, and that production we had to cancel that. Mr. Herschel and I discovered a script that was called The Monologue Show, that was basically all monologues. We were actually able to put on three performances of it, and parents of the students, of the performers and cast and crew only, and we limited our house to 125 seated.
Eating out took a whole new meaning and may have changed forever.
You know, the fast food restaurants, they're probably doing better than they were a year ago. I mean, we're designed for people to come in here and be waited on, and the ambiance. My wife does a great job decorating in here, and that's our restaurant, that's our niche. And I've always felt we got to stick with what we do. We'll box it up, we'll send it to go. We'll focus on carry out and what we can do to make that part of our business better. But we're not ready to change and become a fast food restaurant and a drive-through, and it's just not what we're here for. And right now we've got enough sales to not have to be thinking that. March 16th we were taken down to 50% occupancy. And the stock market just tanked that day, so I think people were fearful. Hearing the governor say 50% occupancy in restaurants, and that's when people got scared. And then it was the following day on the 17th, St. Patrick's Day, that by 5 o'clock we were carry out only. We had, and of course this formerly being an Irish pub for its first life. Back in 2005 to 2010, that's one of our biggest nights of the year, St. Patrick's Day, and at 5 o'clock we had to literally kick everybody out of the restaurant on that day, and it hasn't gotten much better since. Half of our food sales now are carry out. We just do it, walk up to the bar, pay and pick up right at the bar, and you're out front door again. The servers are the ones that are taking the biggest hit. The restaurant, of course, is with sales being down, but cooks, we're able to maintain our full kitchen staff because we're still serving food, carry out or dine in. The tip positions, the servers, the bartenders, they're the employees that are taking the biggest hit because there's not a dine-in crowd anymore. We're looking at different options for carry out, maybe some large family style pasta dishes, and with a bulk salad and some salad dressings, and maybe we do some different dishes, lasagna, things that can be packaged for a family of 4, and they can just swing by and grab a big pan of lasagna and head out the door with it and feed the family. So I'm not too concerned with what to believe and what not to believe as much as I am just focusing on what do we do. Too much unknown out there, and all I can control is what I can control, and and that's the menu and the staff and the food and service we offer, and what can we do to add to that. But the overall staff, we still need servers on the floor, we still need bartenders, we still need a host at the door. There's just fewer people coming in.
While dine-in restaurants underwent challenges, drive-in food outlets fared much better.
Before business we were doing very well. We were hoping for a big year in 2020. We had a really good 2019. But once March 16th hit and everything, shutting down, dining rooms closing, we didn't know what to expect. We were just trying different ways to, how are we going to do this? Because are people still going to come out? Or are people still going to stay home? I know we had the toilet paper scare, but honestly, 2-3 weeks into it, that drive-through was just wrapped through the whole parking lot almost every day. I couldn't believe how many people came out and supported us, and are still supporting us. I mean, best year we ever had. And I hope 2021 is just as good, but I just can't believe what transpired in 2020 when it comes to this business. Not just that, it's just how many people we've hired. We've had to hire. It was awesome where all these people were laying off. We were just continuing to hire kids, adults. I mean, we almost doubled our team size. So it's been, from what I can definitely tell, just knowing people in the community, it's been hard, but down here, it's just been hard trying to keep up, to be honest with you. People-wise, and when it comes to, on top of that, all the different stipulations is always changing. How many people can you, once you open the dining room, how many people you can have, and they're wearing masks and gloves and everything else. It was a big change, but they adapted quick, and it's just, I couldn't believe what happened this year, to be honest with you. Fast food industry is honestly probably changed forever. You're going to see a lot more, double drive-throughs. People know that they can go through a drive-through and get food just as quick. We were slowly tracking that way even before the pandemic. Sitting inside and eating is slowly going away.
We had a big event scheduled, I believe, for the following week when all of this happened. It was either 1 or 2 weeks later that got canceled. A huge event that meant a lot to us to have in March, which is a slower month for us, so that got canceled. That was the start of the bad news. And then from then on, pretty much every event that we had scheduled through the summer was shortly canceled. No new events were being scheduled because gatherings weren't permitted, so that was huge as far as conferences, weddings, any kind of event. It was pretty much all done. The hotel was way down March, April, even May. It didn't start picking up a little bit till into June. We would have 2-3 rooms a night, and that's horrible at a time when we really need to start being busier. Summer, we had some weekends that were pretty good, July and August, but not as good as they should be, because that's the time when we need to build up that cushion to get us through the slower parts of the year, so we didn't get that. The fall's been a struggle. Normally in the fall we've got weddings, we've got Christmas parties that come in November, December, none of that, so that was really a big struggle. One of the hardest decisions Marty had to make was cutting the restaurant hours. We were open 7 days a week, but business being down so much, trying to cut payroll, trying to cut expenses wherever we could, we had to close down Sunday nights and all day on Mondays, something we've never ever done before. So that was a tough decision, it really was. We've also had to cut some payroll at the hotel, employees that have worked there a long time, losing hours, and it's really been a struggle for everybody. So yeah, it hasn't been a good year, but we know things are going to change. We're hoping 2021 is much better. I've already gotten a call today. I got a call about a class reunion, so people are looking to do things. So once things start opening up, I think things will turn around, but we just got to make it through the rest of the winter and see what happens. The competition has really increased in the conference arena, I guess, in the venues for conferences, especially with the Dells. There's all kinds of places now to have a meeting or to have a wedding, and weddings especially, wedding barns, not everybody is looking for the type of venue we have, so there is definitely more competition there. Hotel-wise in Reedsburg, there's no more hotels necessarily in Reedsburg. There's we have a couple for competition, and we feel like we do get more the business that is actually coming. I think we're doing a little better than those other ones. We have a little more positive reviews, and I think people feel a little better about staying with us than the other two here in town. So I think that's helped us, get the business we can, but there just isn't that much business there to get. We had a really good turnout for New Year's Eve. I was shocked. I think people are kind of they're just itching to get out, I think, and do things. But I'm hoping come spring, and if the vaccine gets out and people feel safer to travel, then I think we could have a very busy spring and summer, and I think events could start coming back. You know, it's going to take a little bit of time yet. Unfortunately, a lot of our customers, especially in the restaurant, are of an older age, you know, and those are the ones that are not coming out as much, you know, so that's hurt us a lot in the restaurant. You know, we've got people we haven't seen since March that used to come in all the time, but they don't, you know, they're not coming out until they've got the word, or they've got the vaccine, or they've got the word that it's okay to come out. So, you know, that's been a struggle for us too. We've been trying to think of ways to get younger, because you always want to get younger customers. You got to get those in the door too. So we've been trying to think of that, but it's just been a struggle.
While the hospitality industry has taken a big hit, not all businesses have suffered as much. Some have even prospered beyond expectations, such as real estate.
It was really an interesting dynamic because we have an aspect of our economy that's struggling mightily. Our service and hospitality industries are getting crushed financially, where our industries and other industries, the real estate industry and others, are just going through the roof and skyrocketing. So from the day that the order came down, within 40 hours, we went to be 100% a virtual company. So everything's done online. All of our sales meetings are done online. All of our meetings with our corporate staff are done online. It's provided us an opportunity to change the way we train our new agents. We've been able to train and continue to train and do additional growth with our agents, whether they're new or experienced, over the last, since March, 7-8 months. It's been a real strong benefit. We're really excited about the future, what that's provided to us. So back, if we reverse back to March, when we first all experienced the COVID-19 hitting our area and impacting our lives, we didn't know what to expect. Real estate continued to stay strong. We're very active. We're selling real estate. New listings were coming on the market. So we've built on that growth as far as the actual sales go and actual results we've had with buyers and sellers, to how we train our agents and grow and even our training aspects of what we do. The new generation of realtors are so productive and so active and on the go so much that that's the best way that we can communicate with them, from a sales meeting standpoint, from a training standpoint, from company announcement standpoint. It's been more effective to do that than even in some cases emails, because we know the message is getting delivered directly. There's feedback immediately, and it's been a real positive for us. So we have buyers from outside the area or even in the area who are looking at properties virtually, certainly online through the internet, but also virtual tours that are provided by the listing agent or possibly their buyer's agent who goes through the house. If they have interest in the property, they'll then come back and look in person. Or in a lot of cases, people are buying stuff sight unseen. They've seen the property, I should say, but they haven't physically walked through it. So we're seeing that. Open houses have been a really strong part of our profession. That went away with COVID, obviously. When it slowly came back, our company requires that we wear masks to follow the CDC guidelines and regulations. But, well, hopefully the vaccine's coming out at the time we're taping this. Hopefully that's going to change some beliefs and some attitudes. Average sale price of residential real estate nationwide in 2020 is going to end up at about 15 to 16% appreciation in 1 year. Now, to put it in perspective, a good year in real estate values in our area would be 2 to 3% growth, maybe a 5% growth. But nationwide, it's going to be about 16, almost 15.9, 16% growth at the end of 2020. It's going to be maybe half that. Again, they're anticipating 8 to 9% growth in 2021, and that still makes it a spectacular year for valuation. When's the top, or when's the bubble going to burst? There are no indications in our aspect of the economy that that's going to happen. Interest rates are at record lows. There's a lot of cash in the economy, which certainly helps. And so we feel like it's going to continue to grow and people are going to do well. So there's a lot of good signs as it relates to the real estate industry and where it's headed in the next 12 to 18 months. We feel like that's going to continue, barring anything unforeseen.
Within the first 3 weeks, we lost 15% of our normal volume. Probably over the next 3 to 4 weeks, we lost another 15%. So we were doing 70% of the volume. What we did is we took the first quarter of the driver's earnings and we averaged it, what they average per week. And We paid them the difference between what they averaged and what they actually made while they were driving through this 2-month period when business fell off a lot. So that make whole pay for the drivers, they loved it. We did that for about 2 months, and then things started to pick back up for our industry. The bounce back was a very sharp V-curve. I certainly wouldn't have predicted that even in July. But it was. We were back very busy in August, so that's a real good plus. The disease has touched us. We have had a number of employees test positive, a number in the office here, drivers. How we've handled the drivers, because they're a remote workforce, if they didn't feel good, we took steps like where they took the truck home. If they had a load on, we would send another truck to wherever they were at, and we would switch. Another driver would take that load and go on with it, and the driver that maybe wasn't feeling the best would just drive his truck home. We just worked through it as things became available, and very proud of our employees and our management team. Everyone worked, really rolled their sleeves up and worked hard through it. And we came out the other side successful. A lot of those eastern states shut down. Rest areas shut down. I was hugely upset with the governor of Pennsylvania when he shut all the rest areas down. And then their answer to keeping the bathroom facilities open was to put porta potties out instead of cleaning. Once they started opening them back up, it was a little bit ridiculous. So those are some of the very real challenges that our drivers had to face. Restaurants weren't open. Our guys started packing their own food, our drivers, a heck of a lot more than they had previously. They couldn't go through drive-thrus. How can you get a truck through a drive-thru? And they would try to walk up to a drive-thru window and they wouldn't be served. A lot of places did, and a lot of places put signs up out there, hey, welcome truckers, God bless those places. The truck stops were still operating, of course, but some of those shut down for a while too. If they had an outbreak, a kind of a concentrated outbreak, it was a lot of work, a lot of extra work. And again, I'm proud of everyone here at Skinner Transfer, and it was. I guess I was pretty darn proud that. I think I was running the show. I'm not sure if I was or not. Sometimes the show runs you, but good team. We have really good employees, and it's a good team.
One event that was able to take place was the Fermentation Fest Farm Art Detour 2020, which had social distancing built in.
One of the reasons we thought we could even contemplate holding the detour during a pandemic is that it is out of doors. About 90% of it people can view, in isolation or in their car. You're safer in your car than anywhere else. So that it seemed like the detour is going to be the perfect response, the perfect kind of cultural response to the pandemic. Opening weekend was the last weekend in September. The closer we got to that, the more we heard people were like, we need this so much. So the Farm Art Detour travels, like I said, county roads. In a new part of the county, we're down in southern Sauk County, between Plain and Sauk Prairie. This one was sort of a figure 8 as opposed to the loop, which the detour has been in the past. We had pretty good participation from the community, because that's really what the biggest part of it. We do what we do, but what really makes the detour special and engaging is the texture of the host community. The people really appreciated it, that it happened at all. They appreciated the precautions we took to ensure it being as safe as possible, and just the range of activities and the artwork, and just the fact that it could happen at all. So it was probably one of the more rewarding detours that I've been involved with, and I've been involved with all of them. A lot of the vendors, a lot of the participants said it was the best ever. And I think some of that, of course, hopefully we're getting better at this as we go, but also I think the fact that it happened during the pandemic, people were just so grateful to be able to get out of the house and engage with their community, or even people coming from outside of the community, in a way that was safe and respectful of the community, the host community.
Access to the essential items such as food and other household supplies became more of a challenge than many of us realized.
It's a roller coaster. One day, you're busy. We were busy because everyone's thinking they're going to be locked down for 2 weeks, so we're getting slammed as far as sales-wise and customers, and you're trying to keep it clean. So it's been different, but we consider ourselves fortunate that we could stay open. But it's tough dealing with the unknown, and then all of a sudden it's hard to get product, and each department is experiencing different scenarios on product shortages, and items we had pre-ordered get canceled because they got shipped somewhere else, and we're struggling trying to find another supplier because we need certain things. People got to have certain things. So it was a lot of extra work for the managers and staff, just time added onto their normal job to try to find product and take advantage of favors that some of these companies owed us. And then you're dealing with your employees, trying to keep them healthy. Like, okay, what are the rules? You can't come to work sick. If you have a fever, we don't want you here. The way we handled call-ins and no-shows for work are a lot different than how we handled them in the past. It affects everyone differently mentally. Some people didn't seem to bother at all. Other people, you could tell, didn't sleep at night because they're worried about catching it and what's going to happen if they can't work for 2 weeks, and waiting for the government to decide if they get checks and if they're going to get paid when they're not working, and who gets paid when they're not working. Or your governor would send you okay, we're making an adjustment. Restaurants can be 25% full, or they can't be open, or they can only do outside. And these changes are being put out there, and you'd have to implement them sometimes in less than 24 hours. And it's not that simple, especially for restaurants and bars. You can't just snap your fingers and make the change. There's a lot of things that go through the steps to make these changes, or you got to call in your food order and change it. And some of those food orders had to be done a week ago or 2 days ago. Or you're trying to find another supplier. These are things that go on behind the scenes that people don't realize. They think, you guys are just lucky you're open, but there's a lot of things that happen in the background that they don't realize, that you're trying to keep things floating. And I feel for the bars. We have a bar, and we know what it's like from day to the next when they can't make up their mind if you're open or closed, or or how many seatings, or it's just constant changing. It's difficult. There's all these little varying things that go on, and then you're just trying to keep running without hiccups, and then you have people giving you their opinions of how you should be running it, and everyone has a different opinion, and you can't keep them all happy. But you're trying with a smile. And it's nice to have masks sometimes, because if you grit your teeth, it's like, I don't know what to do anymore. But, you grin and bear it. But yeah, that was the toughest part, I think. And it seemed like Mondays were the worst, because that was the day everybody called to yell at you that you're not doing this right and you're not doing that. And it's like, I'm trying, but we're in the same boat, because we all are living with this unknown, and we are too. And then you're dealing, too, with the employees. Like I said, they all had a varying opinion and trying to make them wear masks, but yet the governor says you can't force people to wear masks, and it's just, and then people are telling you should have someone at the door, being the guy who, no one comes in without a mask, and it's like, I couldn't keep a person in that position. And I told somebody, I wouldn't want that job. I'm not going to ask somebody else to do it. well, there's all these unemployed people. And I'm like, yeah, but nobody in their right mind would take that job. I know companies like Menards and some of them, I don't know how they keep staff in that position as much as they get yelled at and cussed at and spit at. And it's a tough job. And I'm not going to do that to an employee. At some point people have to be responsible for their own actions, and you can't be everybody's mom. This area, I feel we've been fortunate to be in Wisconsin. Instead of being in New York or California, I can't imagine what those people go through or what they're still going through, and losing businesses and their livelihood. I wouldn't want to be in that position. So we consider ourselves very fortunate and that we've been able to stay open and operate.
2020 ended with the introduction of the first vaccine. High-risk groups such as elderly people living in assisted living communities have been given priority for the vaccinations, as have healthcare workers. Worldwide, it is expected to take as long as 2 years before vaccines are available everywhere. This time period may stretch out further as new strains of COVID-19 have surfaced, suggesting that current vaccines may not be effective against these new strains and might require new vaccines to be developed. As you have seen, Reedsburg and its residents are ready and willing to take on whatever comes down the line.